I'm in Austin right now. I've been here for 4 months after a stint of almost dying in Costa Rica from a staph infection, which was a normal staph infection. And in Costa Rica, and a lot of people say Costa Rica has the best better than America in medical care. And I've heard that many times, but well, from my experience, is that they don't, because I was given a staph resistant medicine and it did not cure the staph. So for 14 days, I was hooked up to an IV, and it was 3 times a day for 2 hours each session. So that's 6 hours a day for, I think, 10 days. And my renal function was a scale from 1 to 10. 10 being like you need to go to the hospital. My renal function after this staph infection medicine they were giving me, it was 257, which is sepsis. So my leg was like basically a balloon, and it had a hematoma, which is a bunch of blood in my leg. And they finally they actually they all the whole time I've been going there for, it was like 3 weeks, and they kept giving me this medicine. And actually the day of that I was admitted to the hospital to get surgery, they were like, oh, your leg's looking better. And finally someone took me to get an ultrasound, and then they realized like my leg is completely, the blood is not being circulated like. And I remember the doctor coming up to me and telling me, we might have to amputate your leg. And I'm sitting there like, I'm in Costa Rica. I can't, and if you're in another country, yeah, some of them speak English, but I was all alone and I don't know what's going on. And they say that they might have to amputate your leg. And I'm like, I have no idea what is, like, if they are they not? They say they're taking me to surgery. And I'm thinking, am I going to wake up with like just one less leg? And then they said your renal function is, you're in sepsis, which is your kidneys shut down. And I had moved to Costa Rica thinking like I just want like peace in my life, and then I get this staph infection, which turns into, the medicine that they give me is 10 years old, right? And so that and then they tell me, well, you could actually die from this. So then I'm thinking, 1 second I'm thinking, shit, I don't want to go to get surgery. And then they say you might get your leg cut off, and then they're saying, well, you actually might die. And then I'm thinking, well, take my leg, take it. I don't need it. You can have it. I don't want to die. And as much as I've been dealt with mental health problems, and I've dealt with feeling suicidal, and even in Costa Rica the whole time I was feeling suicidal, because I was sitting there like, I'm what am I doing here? I'm not living a life of purpose. I'm not doing anything for anyone. I'm just sitting here. As an American, you can't work there. So I'm just sitting there. There's no dog parks for Rocky, and he's such a hyper dog. And it was just like, everything isn't what it always seems. Pura Vida, it's nice when you visit a place for a week. I always like to say is like, if you ever seen Locked Up Abroad, it's like if you're ever to tell those people who visit these nice countries, because I'm sure they, like, my dad's house where actually overlooks the prison. You can see the prison. And I always think, what's going on in that prison? And if you were locked up abroad in a nice country, you would have a whole different perspective than a person who just visited 2 weeks and was laying on the sand, and then they got to go home, right? So I was in a hospital where everyone's speaking Spanish. I don't know what's going on. Am I going to wake up with an extra leg? So they put me in surgery. I wake up and it's like 4 in the morning by myself, and there's this tube attached to my leg, and it's sucking out the blood. And they uh, this is what happens, I guess. Just this happens everywhere, people say, right? Is that there's no hospital rooms. So they put me in an ambulance, and I'm like freaking out of it. I'm on morphine and I don't know, whatever they give you to knock you out. So they throw me on an ambulance, and then I'm getting hauled off, and I don't even know where I'm getting hauled off to. So I get hauled off to San Jose, into this small little tiny hospital. It has 5 beds. and no windows. I wake up in there. I'm in this 5-bed hospital, and then within a few hours, they're wheeling me off for another surgery. And I'm thinking, well, I still have my leg. Is this one gonna be like? Is this the like? Were they prepping to cut my leg off now? And no one's. They don't. I think it's partly too. Even when they speak, some of them speak English. It's just like they don't really, they may have different words for things. And because he also said I tore my ACL, and so I'm thinking, I said that doesn't make sense. I tore my ACL, I got staph infection, then I got hematoma, and then the lady who I met wanted. So the thing is you're getting a lot of these ER doctors, and they're like 23 years old. The thing is, in Costa Rica is different. It's like maybe in the US you have to be, you have to have like 6 years of residency or whatever. I don't know. There, it's like maybe you become a resident within 2 years. Some of these guys are like 23, so they're just reading out of a textbook, and so they're giving me the wrong medication. And then I get an infectious disease doctor. Once they finally did the surgery, it was like now the doctors are going to talk to the other real doctors, not the ER doctors. So the infectious disease doctor looked at it and was like, you were on the brink of dying. Like you're in sepsis. They should have never given you this medication. And so she gave me the right medication, and it went away. Like the staph infection went away, but the hematoma, which was the blood that was stuck in my leg, did not go away. It just kept, it wouldn't move. So this machine was pumping it out. And I just remember the first day they just like don't speak English. The nurses don't speak English. They just take off my clothes, start giving me a bath naked, and they're just laughing. And I'm sitting here like, I guess this is normal. Like, go ahead, have fun. They were just like laughing because they never seen a gringo in this 4-5 person hospital in the middle of San Jose. And I remember when I went to get my ultrasound, it's just things are so traumatic for me when I think about it, because I went to get my ultrasound, and they had a guy who was a drug lord who had gotten shot. And so they were doing surgery on him. And when I walked in to get the ultrasound, they had like 30 guys with AK-47s blocking every entrance, because they were afraid that his cartel was going to come in and try to get him out, because he was under arrest too, right? But they had to do surgery on him. So it's like things like that, and then not really understanding what they mean, and having to go there. I had gone probably over 40 times, because the blood in my leg never, once they did this, they did 2 surgeries, and they did 5 punctures to try to remove the blood from my leg. And the thing is I actually had a hematoma when I was 11 years old and I almost died. So there's a lot of traumatic experience from that. And I'm sitting in this country like, yeah, pure vita. People are like, oh, that's so cool. And I'm thinking, this happened within 2 weeks. I brought my surfboards. I was going to try to surf again. I brought my dog, which, never bring a dog, like, unless you're going to move somewhere and you're going to move somewhere for 100% fact. Bringing a dog to another country, especially a big dog that's like hyper and weighs 80 pounds, was just, it was like I had 2 surfboards, a dog, and 3 bags, and it was just literally a nightmare. And then also too is dogs in Costa Rica aren't like dogs here. They don't take them to dog parks. They're just like, they're not pets. They're basically the guard dog. They sit outside and bark. So Rocky is very social and he wants to play with dogs, and so it wasn't a very good time for him. I'm there and I don't have anyone really there to like help me. My mom was gonna fly in and she told me to go to the US, and I'm sitting there like, my leg is so bad I can't even walk. And so even after I get out of the hospital, I have to go back every few days. And this thing about this country is so small. Like, there's only 3 doctors in this country that could do this surgery. I don't know why, but there's only 3 doctors. And it just so happens I was close enough to the doctor that could do the surgery. And imagine you in some other remote place and this happening, you would have just died. And of course, I almost died because they gave me the wrong medication. And luckily enough, the infectious disease doctor caught it quick enough, or else I would have died and I would have gone into sepsis and kidneys shut down and all that. I think just being able to speak English, and so that's why I was like, okay, I've been here in Costa Rica, Pure Vida, yeah. To me, it's locked up abroad. So I moved to Austin because I just wanted to be into like a place where they spoke English. And if you know me, I've moved around so many different places because I'm just constantly trying to find myself. And one lesson I learned is you can't run away from yourself no matter what. You're never going to be able to run away from yourself. You can move to the look, I moved to Costa Rica where people would be like, oh my God, I always want to live there. But you don't really know what it's like until you're there. And then you're with the person that you're running away from. All the problems are within you. So if you can't solve them wherever you're at, you're never going to solve them in some other place. So I almost died, and I remember I still do. I wake up every morning. I try it when it's when it's fresh. It's fresh. You're like you get out of it, and you're like, oh my God, I'm so thankful to have my leg. I'm so thankful to be alive. But it slowly starts to fade, right? But I tried to remind myself every morning, like I'm so grateful to have my leg because I run a lot, I work out a lot, and yeah, it wouldn't be the end of the world, but I think that's just something that when someone says they cut off your leg, and I remember I met a guy at the gym who told me that if I would have gone to a lower end hospital, the doctors don't know how to do the surgery, so they just cut off. They know how to cut off a leg, so they just figure, hey, uh, I don't know how to do that surgery, so I just cut off a leg. And so I could have easily ended up there. And then you don't speak the language, and like you don't know what's gonna happen. So everything was so traumatic for me. So I moved to Austin. That I'm here for 3 months, and then I. Funny thing is I fell over and I cut my lip. We're here. I don't remember where it was, and you could actually see the bone. And I'm thinking I have to go to the hospital. I was like, there's no way I'm going to the hospital. I'll take the scar any day over going to a hospital because I had so much traumatic experience over hospitals that I even from when I was in 8th grade, I had traumatic experience. I don't think I've ever been in a hospital since then until Costa Rica because I almost died. I remember when I was in 8th grade, I had a hematoma, the same thing. They had the priest come in and say their last rites, and I'm thinking, why is this priest coming in and doing this weird thing? And my mom told me later that our doctor that we had, a primary physician, he actually would cry at night because they thought I was gonna die. So, and I was thinking I was on this baseball team, all star basketball team. I thought, Mom, when am I gonna play next Friday? And I took me like 4 months, and I was walking around with crutches and an IV hanging out of my arm. So I mean, those things are just it just brought back all these traumatic experiences. So I moved to Austin thinking, okay, this is going to be a better start. And if you've ever started a new project or you ever moved to a new place, it's kind of exciting at first, right? It's so exciting because you have endless opportunities, especially if you start like a new business. And I've started over a dozen, so I know what that is. It's like it's going to be so huge, right? It's going to be this, and this, and then you get shown the real truth, right? You see that your competitors are bigger, better. You see that you overlook like all the bad things. You overlook all the little things, right? Because your mind wants to focus on all the good because we're excited. So with Costa Rica, it's like you focus on surfing good waves and people are nice and this. You don't focus on the crime and like if something happens and you don't know the language and the medical system and just like in Costa Rica, if you get a parking ticket, they take off your license plate and then you have to get a taxi or something to go drive 4 hours to this place to get your driver's license back on. Like little things like that. Like you have to become accustomed to that, and then flies and things that eat you, and everything just works so different. And then you being a gringo, people are always going to charge you differently. So it's not what you think. And I think we always tend to look, I mean, it's a good thing that we want to look for the positive in things, but sometimes it's like being locked up abroad. I bet you if you told someone that went to the Philippines and didn't get locked up abroad. Let's say they just had a great time 2 weeks. They would say, I love the Philippines. You tell that to someone who went to the Philippines and they went to prison for 5 years, they would say, take me to any country other than the Philippines. If anything, I don't even want to leave the US. So that's why I moved to Austin. And it's funny, it's like after 3 months being here, I'm like, it's no different than living in LA. It's no different than living in San Diego or Las Vegas. And all the places I've lived, it's really no different. You know, it's the same people trying to work the ladder, trying to impress other people, trying to make them make money, put it into stocks, and not live the passion the way that they want to. So I think that it's like you move, you try to avoid yourself, try to avoid looking in the mirror, you try running away from yourself. But yourself is always going to chase you. It's always going to find you. All those bad habits are always going to roam with you. So, one thing I did learn about this trip to Austin, because I'm moving again, because I realize is you have to burn that old identity. And I think, like David Goggins, he says Goggins is different than David. You know, David is the old him. And I think he had to create those identities, because if he were to assume that those two people were the same, then it would be very hard, because that old person, David, was this fat guy who ate Twinkies and Slurpees. And then how he created Goggins was just this totally new person. I think people have to realize is that you can change, but you have to figure out how, and you got to figure out what you're running from, what is keeping you in the same spot. A lot of it is these bad habits that we've created. And I'm not saying that I'm any different, because habits are freaking hard to quit, man. Years and years of doing the same thing. Like when you try to do something different, just like even simple stuff. Like you watch Netflix for 2 hours and you say, I'm not gonna watch Netflix for 2 hours. Man, you go through withdrawals. Like you're like, I want to put on my Netflix and just chill. And if you're someone, and it doesn't even have to be hard. You can say you just read a book, but people are like, no, I want to put on my series. And you go through withdrawals, you go through mental, physical withdrawals. So imagine anything that's somewhat addictive, even that gives you even more dopamine rush, right? And we have to have that new identity in order for us to build into. And that new identity is not going to happen overnight. And so I think what I realize is writing this book is that the old identity is something that I have to burn, and I have to let it die off, or else it's going to just keep chasing me. It's going to keep chasing me no matter what. And I can go to wherever, whatever city, went to whatever country, and get staph infection, and it still follows me here. So I created a new identity, and we'll see how that works. But remember that wherever you go, doesn't matter. You can go to far across the world, but unless you change your identity is on how you view yourself, how you love yourself. If you don't love yourself and you don't view yourself as something different than maybe the past you that you don't like, then you're never going to change. And if you love yourself for who you are right now, then great. But for a lot of us, like I don't love myself. I don't. I hate it. So many things about me. I think there's some good things about me, but I focus on a lot of the bad, and I know I could be so much more if I were able to get rid of those things, but sometimes they're just so hard. So when you can love yourself, you can love everything about yourself, even the good and the bad. I think that's when the power of just finding yourself and living in that spark and that flame, I think that's when everything becomes so magical. So that's my journey. That's why I want to create this video, because this was I've created a lot of videos in the past, and this is something different. I'm trying to find what really resonates with me, and this is what really resonates with me. So finding yourself, finding what makes you get up in the morning, what gives you drive, what gives you purpose. It can't just be going to a job. It can't be just the money. It can't be just your girlfriend. It has to be more than that. It has to be deeper. We all have something inside us that drives us. So let me know In the comments, if you see this video and you have something that you've always wanted to do but you've been too scared to, let me know. I'd like to hear, and hit subscribe.